All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason from Basement Pythons. I already got my name already messed up. Joining me today is Don. Don, why don't you tell the people who you are?
Don from Punk Rocket Ball Pythons, out of Montana, and yeah, been breeding ball pythons for a little while now.
Also joining us is Chris from Center. Chris, why don't you tell people who you are?
I'm Chris. I run Center Ridge Reptiles, and I'm from down south in Mississippi. And we also have been breeding for a little while.
So, everyone you see here is part of the You Do You community, who's on Discord, YouTube, and TikTok. And originally, we were doing a lot of videos that were on Zoom calls and stuff like that. We wanted to offer a lot of other stuff to people on YouTube. So today, we're going to discuss ball pythons and breeding them. We've got a lot of questions and a lot of knowledge who is here. So that's what we're going to discuss here today. So we'll just get right into it. So Don,
Yes.
right now we should be breeding's in full force right now, right?
Yep.
Especially with the time of the year, barometric pressure, all of us in the United States who are doing it, we've entered winter. So going into the season, let's talk about what sizes do you want to see on your females and males that you have for starting to breed?
Usually I'm looking between 13 and 1500 grams. At least 3 years old. And bigger, looking chunky and looking ready.
For females?
Correct, yeah. And males, I mean, they kind of sometimes know what to do during breeding season, so their attitudes change a little bit as well.
So what size do you want? What size would you say males would be at?
Males, I mean, I've heard of people doing them at 400 grams, but I like to wait till at least 800 grams until they got some good body condition on them, and I know they're not going to wear out real fast.
So when we're talking like females, so you said 1,300 grams. Center, what's been Chris from Center, or Chris from Center Ridge Reptiles? What's been your experience with females of lower weight?
We usually don't go lower than really. I mean, if we do 1,200, it's got to be a girl that's in really good shape, And like every snake is different, so you can have a 1,300 gram female snake who is great weight and good body condition and looks overall way better than this 1,300 pound snake who just happens to be, older and larger, but maybe not in the same like body condition and maybe isn't, better to breed that year. Every snake is different in how it's going to present overall. And every now and then you'll find one that might do well at 1,200, but it's not a habit that we tend to make. The snake has to be in very good condition. Sometimes snakes will tell you that. But no, we don't generally really go under 1,300. We really want to see 13, 13.5. And with the males, I mean, Punk really said it best, like a lot of people do them really small, but like he said, we males will breed themselves to death all the time. It happens, and we want them to be in good body condition to have the stamina and the supply to be able, especially and also what I do with my males for the first 3 years, I kind of have a rule of thumb. The first year, I would only breed that male to one female. The second year he breeds, I would go to two. The third year, I would do three. And any year past that, I might consider putting him in multiple projects by that time. That's generally how I do my males.
Yeah, so for me, right, I let the animal tell me when they're ready. I have the luxury of an ultrasound, So for me, with females, when they start growing follicles, that's the animal telling me that she's ready.
Right.
So that's when I pair. If she's telling me that she's ready to make follicles, to start making eggs, then that's when I pair. For the males, though, I've been guilty of pairing a male too soon, and I produced an entire clutch of slugs because he wasn't ready, and he was on the lower weight. He was around 500 grams. I thought he was ready to go, and things didn't work out for me, so that was a learning curve. But the male is the most important part of it, and if you guys want to, who are watching this, if you want to breed snakes, an ultrasound is one of the most invaluable tools that I think you can have. There's no
We're
guesswork.
learning to use ours still. We're so excited until we actually learn to use it.
Yeah, it's an awesome tool to have, especially if you want to do this in some sort of level where you want to produce awesome stuff. And it also helps you out with the males too, because you're not playing the guessing game as to when to pair. And I know Don, he just recently got his own ultrasound, so this year is definitely going to be a different game for him, knowing where his snakes are at. I know we've got some comments here about ultrasounds are so expensive. They are expensive in the sense that for us who are doing things and bringing snakes into our collection, we're not spending cheap money on males or females. So when it's avoiding that one snake that you're going to bring in this year, because we're all putting money towards our collections. It's sacrificing that female or male or that one snake this year to be able to know where your other, who knows how many you have, to be able to tell where they're at. And it's worth its weight in gold. I can't press upon anyone else the importance of knowing where your snakes are at. And that's my opinion. Maybe someone else has another one. I know that there's other people who don't have it, who've been very successful. But for me, I really do enjoy having that ultrasound to be able to tell me where my females are at.
We're ecstatic, especially having, all the snakes that we have breeding. We got ours on a buyout, and we were lucky that, they were just selling out all of their equipment. And it was a veterinary grade. And we've been so ecstatic to learn. We haven't started. We're starting Sunday, and we are absolutely over the moon because you don't want to waste the male sperm supply, his stamina. Like that's body condition that they're just wasting, and some males already go off of food anyway. So it's really, really great to have.
Right. Okay. So when it comes to pairings that you guys do, how do you guys choose? What's the leading factor that you decide for your pairings? Like, how do you choose what you're going to do? Right. That's a question that I get a lot. Like, I have this female. What should I pair it to? Right. And I'm sure you guys on Instagram, you both are active on Instagram, on Youdoyoureptiles and TikTok. So I know I'm flooded with comments. I have this female. What do I pair it to? Or I wanted to get into breeding. What projects should I get into? How do you guys, let's start with Chris, how do you decide what you're going to breed for that year?
Well, I do decide and I don't decide. It's a lot of different factors. There's a lot of different categories that I guess I decide in. I have, okay, what am I breeding this year that's my personal goal? What do I want to do this year for me? And then I'm like, okay, well, what clown combos do I really want to start at, or like what clown combos am I in the process? What am I doing to further, these clown combos that I'm working on? And then I'm like, you know what? I think that this would look really great with this. And I've been putting this on the back burner. I'm going to pull this out. So I'm getting some kind of personal project. And then I look at the market and I get what I'm going to work towards monetarily. So it's personal and then monetary. And so it's two separate categories, if you get what I'm saying. Like I do it for monetary and I do it for my own personal gain. So it's multiple different categories, but mainly recessives. And I mean, I don't really focus on codoms. I know I told you this the other day. We were talking, codoms are essential, but I don't like codoms, but I do like allelic combinations. And that's really what I want to touch on. Everyone needs to remember allelic combinations. They are so powerful. Allelic combinations are so forgettable, but so powerful. And every year we have 2 or 3 combinations going on, like chocolate and spot nose, powerful allelic combination right there. And we've been focusing more on those. And that's, so we always get one of those and choose those. So, I mean, it's a lot. We really don't choose. We just kind of like, I don't know. It's such a process. So like I said, I do and I don't. It's whatever we have the passion for, I guess.
So, and for those of you listening who don't know, so allelic combination is when the animal has 2 genes in them that are a visual of 2 separate genes that it's going to give off one or the other, like highway, freeway, chocolate spot nose. And there's countless other ones.
Yellow belly specter.
That are yellow belly, yeah, exactly. Super stripes, stuff like that. They're going to give off yellow belly or specter, het krypton or het cryptic, het clown. They're going to give off those combinations, so you're not going to make a normal snake. And so she touched on a good topic right there, where we're talking about breeding for what you want to make, you personally, but also for selling. And Don,
breeding smart.
Breeding smart, right? And Don, I want you to touch on this one, because when we breed snakes together, right, it's not just, I make a clutch of, like my most recent clutch, I made a clutch, and I'll show you, and everyone's going to get to see it at the end of this. My last clutch that was late in 2022 that just hatched, the pairing was an Orange Dream double het ultramel clown to a yellow belly het ultramel. That proved out to be, there was an extra gene in the male that I wasn't counting on. But when I did that pairing, it was not just for me to make, just for making animals. I wanted to get something out of the clutch, and then the rest of the stuff I was going to sell to other people. And Don, when I say this, I want you to touch on, you pair, X to Y to get something for you, but the rest of them you're going to sell off. I want you to touch on the selling off portion. Like we don't breed to just keep everything for ourselves, and why we choose those pairings to be able to do that.
So basically, when I'm making pairings, I'm right now I'm just looking for what's really super high, what I can create that has high contrast, and what can catch people's eye. And so could you repeat the question real quick?
So when you choose your pairings, you go for the best animal that's for your outcome, and then the rest are for selling it.
Correct. Yeah, and the rest are for selling. So basically, I'm trying to get a couple of snakes out of there or out of that clutch to possibly hold back and raise up for future breeders. And then the rest just get posted on Morph Market and go to the local pet shop and and other people. So like, I'm not really making a whole bunch of super spectacular snakes. I'm only making a couple of them, and those couple that are usually going to stay in my racks, and that's why there's not many pictures, or whether or not ever they don't go out as pets, because I'm going to use them in the future.
So that's like, the doing your pairing for you to hold back the best animal, and then the rest of them are, this is what I have, what I'm making available.
Right.
The building blocks of your future projects.
Yep.
So we have another. So how can you trigger your females into growing follicles? I've heard you can adjust the temp. Yeah. So there's people who there's a couple of different views on lowering temperatures.
I
so
cool
that
down the rest. I know not
exactly
everyone does. I do.
I don't cool down my stuff. I don't think Don does too. I think we've had a discussion about this also. My temps are my temps, and they stay that for the year. Am I right, Don?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my temps are my temps. There's no with triggering for them. I let the snakes tell me when they're ready. They'll start growing follicles. It's natural for them to start doing that. So I don't let that play into what I'm doing. It's just when they're ready. Okay, so pairing. So when do you guys pair? And I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but for me, I let the snakes tell me when to pair. I do follicle sizes, so anywhere from 10 to 15 millimeters, 20 to 25, and 30 to 35 millimeters for pairing for me. But I have the advantage of having an ultrasound. So I ultrasound at least once a month all my females and just keep watching when they hit a certain weight, when they hit 1,100 grams ish. I just start ultrasounding to see when they're going to grow follicles. So I know Don and Center, they just said that, or Chris, they just said that Don just got his ultrasound and Center's still learning to use it. So how do you guys pair when you don't have the ultrasound to your advantage? Let's go with Don first.
I pair. It's just a guessing game, and I know October majority will start developing follicles when the seasons change, and so basically I was using the season method where I do there's a breeding season, and then there's not a breeding season. But now that I have the ultrasound, I've just been pairing what girls that I've seen that actually have follicles at the moment. But
Chris,
before it was just a guessing game for sure.
Yeah. Chris?
Well, for us, it's Mississippi's just really hot. Like this December, it was like still 100, but like that's a topic for another day. But yeah, so I mean, we just cool, but I mean, yeah, it's probably not necessary. Yeah, you're right. But we start pairing probably November to December, and probably go, I mean, until they, ovulate. But our girls tend to be pretty routine going off with food, and that also kind of signals us to when their follicles start getting a little bit too big. So if we haven't started pairing by February for some reason, before we started breeding full time, we waited until about January, February, and they just go off food and tell us then too. And so anywhere from November to January we start pairing. Sometimes we get a little late. We started late last year because we had to move into a whole new house, but it worked just fine, and we got, I think, 13 clutches. So
we have another question about what are follicles. So follicles are inside females. What turn into eggs? They look like small little marbles inside of a female that they develop and grow, and that's what turns into, after ovulation, the eggs that they lay. Good question for young people starting out. Okay, so let's move on. How do you be able to tell follicle growth? And let's go, Chris. What's some signs that your females are building follicles, and that you should continue pairing them?
Well, they'll wrap those bowls. They'll cool themselves off for sure. And when their follicles start getting on up there, they'll show interest and start going around the tub, and checking stuff out. But yeah, they'll cool down when they're building those follicles. They just get so hot. And when their follicles get a little bit too big too, they'll go off food. They don't have the room in their body to really contain that mouse. I mean, sometimes they'll take a small mouse, and you'll see they'll want the food, and they'll show interest in it, but they just won't take it because they know that their body can't handle it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long does it take for females to lay eggs after you start pairing is a question that we have. And so that's a very subjective question. So you can arbitrarily start pairing and the females will lock with the males because instinct, has a role in that. Like the females will say, hey, well, there's a male in here. He starts sending, she does too, and they lock. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get eggs after that. It really is the follicle growth portion. And some snakes will build, and I've had, like I said, having the advantage of an ultrasound, I've watched females going, they'll have little small, they'll go 8 millimeter follicles and they'll go from 8 to 20 and it will take months. From 8 to 20, 25 millimeters, it'll take a very long time. We're talking 4 months to go from those two. And then all of a sudden it'll go from 25 to 35 very fast. The follicle growth from small to large, we'll say from, 7 to 8 millimeters to, 20, 25 millimeters will take a good amount of time. But once that starts taking hold, it can be very fast at the end. I don't know if you guys have seen any different.
No, I haven't been able to measure follicle growth all the way up until about a couple weeks ago. But I've used that ultrasound machine probably 20 times since I got it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I can't wait.
Fair. Yeah. So I've seen, when follicles are smaller, that's when it seems.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
Hopefully it'll come back on.
Oh, you will.
What do you think for female eggs? So, Senator, do you have any cool pairings going on this year?
Yeah, I've got too many to count, dude. Did you know that?
Oh I'm God. Back. I guess I had some technical difficulties there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I don't know what happened. Just cut out on me. Well, anyway, so yeah, the small to about 7 millimeters to about 25 millimeters when I've seen the longest that it's taken. But after about 25 millimeters, that's when it really takes off, and you can really watch them build and go and go and go.
Right.
Okay. So, what are we seeing towards the end of follicle growth? Right. So what happens, Chris, what happens towards the end of follicle growth? And when I say that, like over 30 millimeters, what are a couple of key signs that your females are going to go? And you touched on it earlier about going off of food so that you can see your females are growing. What are a couple other signs that you are seeing?
Says their speaker's offline.
Oh, I guess we lost her. Man, we're having just complete difficulties tonight. All right. So Don, what were you? So, like you said, you've been going off you just recently got an ultrasound, but beforehand, when your females are going off of food and you think you're going to lay, what are you seeing towards the end of the 30 millimeters?
Well, right around the time they start going off food, I start looking for an ovulation, and sometimes before I haven't had an ultrasound for an ovulation yet, so I'm not actually sure when to expect it. But before they would go off food, and then they would swell up in the back and just look like they're having a horrible time, and they're just ovulating, and it looks like they swallowed a football. And then a couple weeks after that, they'll lay egg, or they'll shed. And then at that shed time is kind of when I start the timer. There's going to be 30 days, 28 to 35 days.
Yep, that's typically, like it looks like a brick, like they have this massive brick inside of them.
Right.
And then, like you said, after you see that brick, you can kind of watch, and then a couple of weeks after that, they're going to shed, and then you start your countdown. And that's when it's really important, where you start opening that tub towards the end of that countdown. You watch for them eggs. What's a typical clutch that you've seen? I know there's a lot of stuff going out there, but what typical size clutches have you guys seen?
I mean, I've had 2-egg clutches before, but my biggest clutch was a 12-egg clutch. And
Awesome.
I've never really heard of anything over 12 eggs, so I'm not sure.
I've seen some 14. I've seen some 14 and 16 egg clutches that have been posted.
Right.
But yeah, typically for me, I've seen, I've had anywhere from 5 to 10 eggs per clutch, not massive females, anywhere from, 1,600 gram females laying 4, 5, 6 eggs to, over 3,000 gram females laying the same, but I've also had 10 egg clutches.
Yeah.
So let's talk about egg tub setup. How do you set up your egg tubs?
So I use perlite. I used to use vermiculite, but I just do a 1-to-1 ratio. I weigh the tub, and then I put the perlite in the tub. Remember that weight and just double it, or hit tear on the scale, and then pour the same exact amount of weight and water in there, and then mix it together. Mix it real good, and I try to prepare a couple days before I expect a clutch, so I can get it in the incubator and get all that humidity and the moisture inside the perlite to warm up to the temperature it should be.
Do you use a barrier between your?
Yeah, I use I went to the hardware store, got a big giant sheet of light diffuser, and it's basically what you put inside of the ceiling lights. And it took me a long time to figure out what that was, and people at the hardware store don't even know what it's really called. And so there's a lot of confusion around that on what to actually get. And now I got a couple egg trays from a friend of mine that I've been trying out. Not a lot, just like one set.
So I use light diffuser too. I don't measure when I do mine. I throw in perlite, so I have about a good amount, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of perlite on the bottom, and then I pour distilled water in mine, and then mix it up until I feel comfortable with it. And what that comfort level means is when I stick my hand in there and I grab it and I squeeze it, I can't get any water out of it.
Right.
And then I'll go until it makes me feel comfortable. I don't like to use scales or something like that to mix the stuff. It's just kind of personal preference for me, and I haven't had zero issues with that kind of stuff. So I see Senator's back in here. Chris, you back in here? There you go. Can you hear her, Don?
I can't hear her, no.
You cannot hear her?
I cannot hear her.
Okay. Don can't hear you. I can. I think that's because, hold on. Give me 1 second here. I know, again, technical difficulties that's got going on. For our first YouTube live here, and we've got super issues. We're going to transition here for a second and try to add her on here.
Aha.
Can you hear her, Don?
I can.
Hello, Don.
Hello.
There we go. We transitioned.
Hello.
Okay. So, Chris, let's talk incubation temperatures and times. And I know that this is a topic of discussion amongst a lot of people, and I know we probably all do it different. So, Chris, what is your incubation temperatures and time?
88. We keep ours at 88, 89. And we use two different things. My partner uses it different. There's a good example. She incubates her eggs different than I incubate my eggs. I use perlite. She uses cocoa husk. So, two different things. One, same thing. Also, she uses egg trays. I use light diffuser trays. I don't like egg trays because I've just seen a lot of people, and like I've seen it happen to some people, but a lot of times, a lot of people I know, the egg trays have drowned their eggs. And I don't know if they, they just did something different, but I've seen people have their eggs drowned by the egg tray. They accumulate too much moisture on their eggs. Maybe they put them in there the wrong way. I don't know. I didn't put them in there. That's just what I've seen happen. But I use light diffuser trays, so it doesn't matter. And I use perlite. We also press and seal. We use press and seal on the top, obviously. But.
We got a comment on that. Cocoa husk can be used. Elaborate on that. You've never heard that method.
Yeah. She just pulls her eggs, and she wets down the cocoa, and to the point where if you put your hand on the cocoa and pushed it down, and like squeezed, your hand wouldn't get wet, but it's still wet, but your hand wouldn't hit the water or anything. And she takes her eggs out and puts it on the cocoa and press and seals it. I mean, I've never seen anybody do it until her either, but her eggs hatch. So
there's a couple of different methods that I've seen. There is wet sponges that I've seen people use. There is coolers filled with water and using fish tank heaters.
I've seen Orbeez used.
There's Orbeez. Apparently that's a new trend, is using Orbeez that people are doing to do it. I personally only go with, for me, the method that I've used since the beginning, and I know a lot of us, we've been doing this for a good amount of time, the tried and true methods, and I know for me, so I use perlite, which has been proven for years to use. So for me to be able to switch from perlite to anything else is scary, honestly, because I don't want to wreck.
I mean, why fix what's not broken?
Exactly. I don't want to wreck eggs. And I've never had, me personally, and I know there's a lot of big breeders out there who've lost eggs to mold and stuff like that. Me personally, I've produced over 50 clutches, if not more, of eggs. And that's just, I can't even do the quick math of how many that I've produced. I don't like to use 50 clutches. I've done more than that. I don't know why I said that number, but I don't like to change up what I do in fear of losing a clutch because I changed something up. I don't know if you guys feel differently. And
oh yeah, I mean, I have anxiety over everything anyway. When I find something that works and I know it works, like I don't see the point of changing it.
Another question that we got here is, how do you prevent mold if you've ever had mold, and how do you get rid of it? Again, I've never had mold, but I stick to a strict thing that I do. So for me, I only use distilled water when I put in my eggs, because that allows me to not have there's no contaminants, no nothing in the water for me. And then I seal the top of my tubs with press and seal. I use press and seal on the top of my tubs. And then I guess one of the biggest things that I do to make sure that my eggs don't dry out or die is, once my eggs go into the incubator, from when I pull them from the females, I don't touch them until at least like day 42. I leave them alone.
Yes.
And then once
Everybody
that
wants to
happens,
take their eggs out and look at them. Don't do it.
exactly. I leave my eggs in the incubator. As much as I sit there, I have a glass front incubator. I sit there and look at them, but I don't pull them out. And then I pull them out at like day
promise
42.
you, those eggs look the same. I promise.
I pull the eggs out to see like how are they doing, and I open up the press and seal to exchange the air in there. And then once I open the press and seal, I put it back. It doesn't take long, and then I put them back in there. And then usually around day 46, 47 is when I'll check on them every day. I'll pull them out. I open up the press and seal, and I look to see if anyone has pipped. But that's my experience. Because after that, the snakes are formed. There's no defects that are going to happen because I pull them out and look at them. Don, what do you do?
Yeah, I usually just leave them alone until around day 50-ish, actually. I don't like to open my incubator, and I don't like my dirty, germy hands getting close to those eggs. And
yeah,
so I have a glass door incubator as well. So I sit in front of my incubator and stare at them like I'm dreaming.
There you go.
We also have a glass top, so that's what we do too. We like get down like underneath the tubs because like we'll put them on the top rack of the incubator. So we'll just like get down and look underneath the clear tubs and just try to see through the little crack and be like, yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, but there is a couple of methods that I've seen used. I personally have never used it, but there's like there's like jock itch powder or foot like Dr. Scholl's foot powder. Yeah, that people will put on there to if they do develop mold, that they will put on there. If for me, I haven't had to deal with egg molding out. However, if I did have an egg that looked like it was going to mold or start molding, I would pull that egg from my clutch just to make sure it doesn't spread.
Right.
And I would put it in a separate box, and then I would use the powder on it. But from what I've seen and heard, once that egg starts molding, I mean, it's downhill from there. Like it's in the egg tub. Not saying you're going to lose your entire clutch, but it's already in there.
Oh no! There he is.
What are we talking about? Who is?
There you are. You left. We lost you
I've been
again.
here the whole
You're
time.
Back. No, you left.
For like 1 second.
Oh, my bad.
A whole second.
Well, internet. Okay, so cutting versus not cutting. Don, do you cut?
I do cut. Yes.
When do you cut?
I cut around day 50. I really can't wait any longer. I'm a very impatient person, and I want to know exactly what's inside of those eggs. Sometimes they'll pip on day 50 too, and so I'll just, if I see a little nose poking out, I'll cut the rest of the eggs.
Chris, what about you?
I try to wait until they pip. I really do. Sometimes I get impatient, but I really do try to wait until they pip. But I do wait until day 50 at least, yeah. But yeah, like sometimes I've had them pip day 48. Like sometimes they just pop their little heads out, and I'm like, oh yes, let me get my knife.
Yeah, this season was 2022 for me was a very early season for most of my clutches. I think I had about 15
hours too.
And mine were around day 48 is when I had pips from most of my clutches.
All of ours did too. All of ours was like in the 40s this year.
Yeah, weird. Don, we had this discussion too. It was really early for you too. Yeah, so maybe barometric pressure, temperature, stuff like that around the world had an effect on that. Another question here: what happens if my power fails and my temps in the incubator drop? From my experience, it all depends on where in incubation your snakes are at for developing issues. So in my incubator, and I don't know about you guys, I keep a bunch of water bottles. So I keep my distilled water. I have gallons of distilled water that I keep on the top shelf to make sure it's at the same temperature as my incubator. And then I have water bottles all over my incubator to be able to help retain the heat in there in case my incubator loses power. And I've only lost power one time during incubation. I have a generator at my house that if I did lose power, I plugged my generator in within the hour that my incubator that I lost power. So then I was able to power my incubator. But there are also battery backups that you can use that'll give you an hour or two of power until that happens. I think that temperature spikes going up are more dangerous than loss of temperature. And we're talking I'm only talking a couple of degrees, between that, from 88, I incubated 88. So when it goes from 88 to maybe 84, 85, I didn't have any issues from my snakes. The spikes is really what you want to pay attention for. The going up, 90, 92, or, not 90 because people incubate at 90, but like that 95, 96, over 100 degrees is when it causes issues with your snakes where you're going to make some deformities or kill the egg itself. I don't know if you experience anything else, Don or Chris.
No.
Yeah, I've had a couple snakes come out a little deformed, and I found out that I had incubator fluctuation. And so there was about a 5 to 7 degree fluctuation throughout every day. I lost a couple eggs in that incubation as well, and realized that I just needed to put a better thermostat on there, and I was able to get it to fluctuate within 1 degree. So it's not such a drastic fluctuation.
I luckily have not had that problem.
Yeah.
And on my incubator here, it's smaller. And I'm actually I think this coming year, I'm actually upgrading to the sea serpents one because we took the big sea serpents up to my partners, so I'm going to get a little one down here. But right now, it's just a mini fridge, and I worry about that a lot. And so we took the generator that my stepdad had at his house, and I brought it down here because that's the thing that I worry about the most. Being in the South, we have tornadoes all the time. Right. We lose power all the time. And that's what I'm worried about. So we brought my generator down here. It's definitely something to take seriously. Like, definitely do your research, find your options. It's definitely not a thing that you don't want to have a plan for sure.
Right. Definitely. So after we all cut our eggs, I know that I see I try to wait, like everyone said, for them to pip. Sometimes I get a little early and I want to see what I produced, right? Everyone is excited to see. What's your typical time that you're seeing for the snakes to come out of their eggs? Don?
Sometimes they'll come right out within 3 or 4 days. Other times they'll lay in there for 6 days sometimes before they all are actually out of the eggs.
And what are they doing? What are they doing while they're sitting inside their eggs?
They're absorbing the rest of their yolk.
That nutrients,
right?
Yeah, that's that food that they need, so that when they come out, they're able to sustain longer.
Right.
Okay, so all your snakes come out of their eggs, right? So for me, as soon as I cut the eggs, I take my egg tray out. So before I cut my eggs, or I have the first one pipped, I pull all my eggs out and I pull them off to the side, and I pull my egg tray out, or my I say egg tray. I pull my light diffuser that I have in there, so that if the snake comes out and its umbilical cord is still attached, it's not going to drag on the light diffuser and rip it out of its belly, and then it's going to bleed to death and die.
Oh yeah.
So I pull out my light diffuser from there, and then I will put them back in their eggs before they can before I wait for them to come out, and then I wait for all the eggs come out, right, and then or all the snakes come out of the eggs. And then this is another topic of people do this differently. So when they come out of their eggs and they're all sitting there all bunched up, right, what do you do? So for me, when I see all the eggs come out of the snakes, I set up in a communal tub in my hatchling rack with wet paper towel with a lot of water, and I let them sit in there with a cup of water until they shed their first time, which can take anywhere from 7 to 14 days. I've also seen a lot of people who will leave the snakes in the incubator in their tub that they were incubated in. I've never tried it, and I'm curious what you guys do. Let's start with Chris. What do you do?
We actually do that. Yeah, we'll get them, like fresh tub, but yeah, I mean not fresh. We'll get them fresh substrate, but yeah, we'll get all the nasty out, and we'll put them right there, and we'll keep them incubating in the incubator all together until they have their first shed, and then when they have their shed, we'll separate them, and we'll try our best to sex them, and we'll write down their identifying markers on their necks. We usually identify them by their neck markings and separate them into tubs, and put them in the racks. Yeah.
Don?
Yeah, so I take the light diffuser out of my egg box as well, and just let them chill out in there until they all come out, and then as soon as they're all out of the eggs, I will set up a tub in the rack. But I just soak paper towel and make sure that they're on damp paper towel rather than putting a bowl inside of the tub. And then I change that out probably twice a day sometimes, just to kind of keep it fresh in there. And as soon as they shed, I'll pull them out one at a time as they shed, check their gender, and get them set up in their own little tub for 10 meals. And then once they get past 10 meals, then they'll go into a bigger tub and get fed bigger meals.
So what do you feed? What do you feed? This is another topic of discussion. There's hopper mice, there's rat
fuzzies,
and
pinky
then
rats,
and then ASFs.
Right.
What do you guys? So I know I've had terrible times with clutches, to where I've had some eat first time every time, and I've had an entire clutch that just did not want to eat, and then it ended up being assisted. What have you guys found that works for getting babies on food? Chris, let's ask you first.
This year we kind of noticed a pattern. Our clown clutch were really great eaters. And when they came out, they were not. We didn't really handle them too much, moving them around. We kind of put them in the bottom of the incubator, and we didn't get them out for inspection a lot. And we were just moving around a lot this year since we were moving, and we would show those because we really liked the Super Blade in that specific clutch. It was the Super Blade leopard clown, and so we really liked it, and so we were particularly getting that clutch out a lot. And They were ferocious eaters, all of them except for the super blade. And it's because we had messed with him so much. And so we kind of noticed a pattern in all of our clutches. The least that we messed with them when they were shed in the middle of their first shed, from like the time that they came out until their first shed, if we didn't mess with them, that they were generally good eaters. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but we actually noticed that. But we start ours on pinky rats. The majority of them take them. And if not, we try again in about 3 days. And if they still don't take it, we'll try again after a week mark hits. And when it starts getting to about a week and a half, at least at the 2 week mark, then we'll start assist feeding.
Don, so you want to chime in here?
Yeah. I get them on hoppers for about the first 10 meals once a week, and it just keeps them eating ferociously. I've had the same luck with sometimes they don't eat or they eat right away. And the ones that don't eat, I'll just wait a week and then offer again. And then if they don't, I'll offer for about 3 weeks until I start getting worried about assist feeding.
Yeah.
And they seem to, after I assist feed them one time, they'll go right on. If they've had that whole 3 week, it's not really a starvation. They got a lot of yolk in there, but they just need to get food in their belly right away. But I had a couple eggs this year, and the 2 snakes that were in it were, I literally tried the next day after I put them in their new enclosure, after coming out of the community tub, and they both ate like they've been eating for years. And
Yeah.
It seemed like this season they were eating better than last season too, right along with coming out early.
Awesome. Yeah, so I've noticed, and I tried it this year. I had a good amount of clutches this year, and early on in 2022, I was trying to feed. I would separate them, and I would put the babies in their community tubs, and then like 2 days, or not community tubs, individual tubs. And about 2 days after I would do that, I would try to offer food. And for me, what I noticed is if I took the baby snakes and I put them into their individual tubs and with water and paper towels, and if I left them alone and I did not mess with them for a week, 7 days, I tried it on a couple of different clutches. If I left them alone after they shed for 7 days, and I put a live, I didn't do pinkies, I did like fuzzies, and I took small rats, very, very small, not pinky, but not fuzzy rats, and I just I opened the tub just enough, and I put it in their tub for them, and I left them alone. That majority of them took their meals. If I did not mess with them, I didn't irritate them, I did whatever, I just left them alone for that entire week, and I put a rat in there. I noticed that more would take their meals than before when I was trying to offer food too fast.
Well, now that I'm breeding my codoms here instead of over there, I'll change that up. I'll just try that and just wait till 3 weeks because, like I said before, like being, with a person, face to face with my partner, I kind of get in the habit of doing things how she teaches me. So more than willing, I think I'll put that to use and try doing that 3 week like you guys do because of, if I don't have to assist feed them, I really don't like to. It's stressful for me.
Yeah,
it's stressful for the snake, and I don't like doing it. So I would rather not doing it. It's awful, and it can, too much can go wrong with it. So I just rather not do it if I don't have to. So.
All right. So now the next topic, the last topic that we have is when there's 2 parts to this. So the first part is, let's go with, how do you choose your holdbacks? For me, I'll start. When I do my pairings, obviously it's to expand my collection. I only breed something visual recessive to something if it's not recessive, to get that recessive into what I want or to make the visuals. How I choose my holdbacks that I do is I'm going to do at least one holdback from every clutch, whether or not it is a male or female, to be able to expand what I have. It all depends on what I need. If the best animal out of that clutch is a female, but I don't need her, she gets sold. But if I need the male, who is the second best one, is the one that I keep. So for me, on this last clutch that I just hatched, it was an Orange Dream Yellow Belly double het Ultra Male Clown, which I just discovered the yellow belly to a yellow belly het Ultra Male. For me, for next season, the animal that I would want to hold back is going to be a male visual Ultra Male to pair back to be able to make more Ultra Males. That is how I go at this game for what I have. How do you guys choose the holdbacks that you're going to keep? Because obviously we want to keep them all, right? To expand what we have. I mean, that's always the game. But we can't do that because, one, we have to be able to make some money to sustain our businesses that we have. But two, there's other people out there who follow us on social media and stuff like that and want to get into this, and they can't do it without us to be able to supply that stuff. So how do you expand and decide what you're going to hold back?
So I basically just hold back what I think is going to advance the project. Last season, I worked a couple years trying to get that banana NG clown, and him and one of his sisters from another mother were probably the only two I kept all season out of all clutches. But and another banana female as well, I was able to keep. But I guess going into the future, it's just going to be about pulling or keeping what is going to advance the project and what's going to make the project richer and moved up a level, whether it be a male or female.
Chris?
Well, I determine my holdbacks first. First I determine, what's in my collection, what is going to add, value to my collection that I have. What can I hold back from this pair or breed from this pair that's going to double and increase this value, make it so much better? And yeah, you always want to hold back the best animal for sure. And when you're making these pairs, you have to remember that you're furthering what you have. You're making your collection better and bigger and grander. So you're wanting to add to your project a lot of recessive, clown, pied, all of these things in here that a lot of new breeders don't think about. A lot of people forget the hets. And I know I did when I started breeding. And for me, I wish I could go back and hold back more of the hets that I sold off, because I can't even imagine where I would be now, And I like to choose recessives that work well together, that always, codoms that work well in recessives, basically. You have black pastels and stuff like that that's going to add to recessive genes. So if you're working codoms and you're working these combinations and you want to know what should I hold back, like what should I breed, like what do I need to put in this recessive, hold back something that's going to work well with recessive, because you have to choose what to hold back in your own collection,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we don't have any more comments, and that is the end of our discussion for tonight. I do want to thank everyone for being here with us, especially Don. Thank you for being here.
No problem.
Chris, again, another fountain of knowledge from both of you two. For those of you in here, our community that we're a part of, the You Do You Reptile community, what we offer in this community is you have us who you're listening to today at your disposal. When I was starting out breeding, after I got my first ball python, there was a lot online that I could read, but putting the knowledge into practice is a lot harder than you think it is. To be able to take a couple of snakes, put them together, make eggs, incubate them, and make babies is a lot more daunting than it seems. So what we offer to this community is our experiences and our knowledge for free. We are willing to help you guys out without asking you to pay for anything, without judgment that you are new to the community, because we all started out somewhere. So if you like what you see and you want to be a part of this community, it's free on the You Do You Reptiles community. All of our links are in that community, along with TikToks, Instagrams, and us at your disposal, who have been successful in what we do. So thank you all for your time. I'm glad that you could have been here and been with us. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Chris. And I hope to do more of this with all of your guys' support.
We will definitely be there.
Definitely. We'll
Have
get
a
this
great
down,
night,
and we won't
everyone.
have so many technical difficulties next time, hopefully.
Yeah, right? Maybe if we need to upgrade some of our internets or something. I don't know what happened. But again, thank you all for being here, and we'll see you guys next time.